If we are honest with ourselves, then we will admit that too many fathers are missing from too many lives in too many homes. They have abandoned their responsibilities and are acting like boys instead of men. And the foundation of our families are weaker because of it. Those were the words of our former President of the United States of America, Barack Obama, in his 2008 Father's Day speech. These words, spoken by our first black president and a father himself, these words are all too real for many black males growing up in this community. Nearly 2/3 of all black males in the United States grow up without their biological father in the home. Heck, I grew up without my father in the home. When I was 8 years old, my dad got locked up, went to prison. I didn't see him outside of prison again until I was 28. So when he got locked up, I was just a boy. And by the time he got out, I was already a man. So that means that when I was getting ready for my very first date, he missed it. And when I ended up getting into my very first fight, he missed that. And when I was first learning how to shave, he wasn't there. And when I had my first son, my second son, my third son, and I got married, he missed all of that. So I asked the question, what does it mean for a boy to grow up without his father? Who's teaching our boys what it means to be a man, and who even defines what being a man is? I can tell you that there's a lot of black males that are faced with this dilemma of trying to define their manhood without having their primary example in the home to show them how. So, without truly knowing what be a man really is, then how can we expect black males to always act as such? I'll tell you what we can expect. We can expect black males to continue to face issues with an ill-defined manhood. And the issues that elicit my attention the most are those that occur for black males in education. There are a vast amount of disparities between the educational attainment of black males and just about every other group. Even though there has been some improvements in this area, I'm afraid they're not on pace with what is needed. Although black males have been graduating high school at a higher rate, we are not seeing more black males prepared for college. So while I would like to celebrate the yards gained in high school graduation, I'm afraid that the end zone has moved further away. And what a high school diploma used to mean in the job market many years ago has now become what a job certificate or an associate's degree means today. And it's not just that black males aren't prepared for college. It's the fact that black males are the least prepared demographic for college. In just about every category we associate with academic excellence, black males are always underrepresented. While at the same time, categories we associate, such as special education, suspension, and expulsion, well, in those categories, black males are always overrepresented, aren't they? Now, these numbers are important because what happens in school seems to be a manifestation of everything else that happens in life. What seems to manifest for black males is that they have the highest amount of those unemployed, the highest amount of those incarcerated, and the highest amount of homicide victims in our society. Now, it's these numbers that keep me awake at night. It's these numbers that are most disturbing for me. And I'll tell you something else. According to a report by the National Academy of Sciences in 2012, Black males have the shortest life expectancy in comparison to every other demographic. You know what else that report also found? Is that when black males get an education, that actually extends their life expectancy. The more education, the longer they live. And it's not just that it extends their life expectancy, but when black males get an education, it extends their life expectancy more than it does for any other demographic. All right? But what I have noticed in working with black males at just about every level of education is that we're not always making this critical connection between what happens in education and the outcome of our life. Black males, sometimes we live in this box. And it's a box of black masculine identity that bears resemblance to a chronically debilitating condition. It's a box that intertwines hyperphysicality with hypersexuality. It's a box in which that says we have to be tough, right? We can never show weakness. We have to be hard in order to be a man. We can't ever lose a fight. Because if we can't win with our fists, then we'll join a gang for strength in numbers. Or better yet, we'll get a gun. Because then I'll be a man. It's a condition that says we can never take a monogamous relationship seriously because, you see, that would involve vulnerability. So instead of building a meaningful connection with a woman, I'll just drown out any emotions that might develop by being with several women. Now, there are those that would blame black men themselves for how they perpetuate these negative cultural characteristics. That if they would just pull up their pants and not idealize thug culture, they wouldn't be in this mess. And I'll tell you what, there are some elements of truth to that. Because when black males are murdered, it's not the Klan that's out there killing black males, is it? It's mostly other black males. So there are some things as black men that internally we need to get a handle on. All right? However, if you just leave the blame there, if you just say, well, if black males are killing other black males, well, then they better stop. That's on them. Right? Then that lets us as individuals and us as institutions off the hook, doesn't it? It creates a notion that that's not our problem, right? But the truth is, this is our problem. Because what's critical to acknowledge is the backdrop to which these young men appropriate this masculine identity. You see, masculine identity is not something that you're born with. It's not genetic. It's a social construct that is created. And in this social construct, there's a broader American pathology at work here. And it's a broader American pathology in which black males aren't the only one affected, right? It's a broader American pathology in which all males are affected. This masculine identity, this thing is literally killing all of us. For example, in 2017, Time magazine reported that of the 134 mass shootings in America, 131 of them were men. Also, according to the CDC in 2015, men are 4 times as likely to commit suicide in comparison to women. And you know, most of the time they commit suicide, they use a gun to do it. And I can tell you that in this country, we've got more guns per person than any other country on the face of the planet. And I'm not trying to take away anybody's gun, but we seem to be teetering on an erotic obsession here with guns. And it's an obsession in which black males are facing most of the consequences. Because according to the CDC in 2017, black males are 13 times more likely than white males to be shot and killed with a gun. Now consider for a moment that historically, black males were disenfranchised in terms of slavery. Black males, when they were slaves, they weren't really allowed to have a wife. I mean, sure, they could jump the broom and say they were married, but not facing the reality of the slave master creeping into the quarters and taking that wife for the night, no questions asked. Consider for a moment that when black males were slaves, they weren't really allowed to have children. I mean, sure, they could commit the act to conceive a child, but not without facing the reality that at any point that child could be sold off to another plantation, or they could be sold off to another plantation. So they weren't really allowed to be fathers, were they? So let's fast forward a bit. Black men are free. We've got the ability to have wives, and we've got the ability to have children. But now the struggles become economic. Now the struggle becomes getting access to sustainable employment to be able to support that family, right? Because we know that historically, black men did not have access to the same jobs as everybody else, right? They didn't have access to a business loan to be able to create a job for themselves either. They didn't have the ability to provide financially for their family. And let's face it, in our society, the ability to provide financially for your family, now that's the trait that's core to manhood, isn't it? Don't we expect men to fit into this mold that we create of financial provider? Isn't there a pressure on them to bring home the bacon? Right? That's right. So consider for a moment that when black males weren't able to provide for their family, perhaps in an effort to reclaim that manhood, perhaps they focused on other traits deemed manly, such as physicality, sexuality. Now, fast forward to today, right? Today, times are unarguably better for black males than they've ever been, right? But the thing is, there was a social construct that we've created, and it's not something that's going to change overnight, is it? So the question that often comes up is, well, what do we do about it? Where do we even start? I would say that we first have to start by not demonizing and stigmatizing black males for the masculine culture that is out there. Because policies that get tougher on crime, well, they only seem to exacerbate these issues. They only seem to make things worse, right? So instead of spending money to build more prisons to house more black men, why don't we consider investing our dollars in education? Why don't we take education seriously as the ultimate tool in the development of our young men? And now I know that black males, they don't always take these traits of a scholar as something salient to their traits of being a black man. They don't always internalize education as something that they can do as black men, as if the two are not synonymous, as if they don't connect, right? So then perhaps what we can do as educators is make that connection, is connect education to something that is salient to black males. For example, black males who are athletes, they are going to college, staying in college, and graduating college more so than black males as a whole, right? Now, why is that? I don't think it's their intellectual capacity necessarily. I think it's because playing sports goes part and parcel with what black men are expected to do. Allowing education to be a subsequent part of that. But here's the thing. We can't just have sports as a catalyst to send black males to college. No, we need to expect more. We need to expect black men to walk into classrooms and not just have the ability to receive knowledge, but also the ability to produce it. We need to take that culture that black men have, and instead of treating it as a liability, let's treat it as an asset. Let's use it. Let's use it as a resource for them to add to conversations in the classroom. Now, look, I'll be the first to hold black men accountable when they perpetuate negative cultural characteristics, but I'll also be the first to acknowledge the great potential that our culture has. Now, we may not be Marvel superheroes from the city of Wakanda, but we are from Kings. And we have exemplified an ability to endure and overcome just about anything. I mean, to go from slavery to Jim Crow to President Obama, well, we may not have vibranium, but we've got a brand of mental fortitude that allows us to overcome obstacles and rise to the occasion, particularly when our backs are against the wall. So let us all redefine black masculinity. And let's act as a catalyst for black men to drop these negative cultural stereotypes and pick up the identity of a college student, which will allow them to pick up the identity of a college graduate. Now, if we can send more black men to college, not only will we change their lives, not only will we change our communities, but we can change the world. And so, if we are honest with ourselves, we will admit that we can raise men instead of boys. And we can be the foundation of our families, and we will be stronger because of it. Thank you.